Greetings, this video is to indicate how to use Slicer, specifically the Lulzbot Cura Slicer, to prepare files for the Lulzbot printers. This is the basic interface with no files ready. This is the build plate for the Lulzbot. It's roughly a square. It's actually 10.8 by 9.8. This is the front left corner. This is home, so this indicates to you which front, so pieces facing forward, etc. We're going to go ahead and load a model first before I get into explaining these things. I'm going to load a model that I know there's already a problem with it, so we can play around. So this little guy, obviously way too small to print. Click on him. He's actually very adorable, but he's super tiny. So we're going to back out. We're just going to scale him, scale button. We're going to maximum scale him using this. Obviously that's too big. It's almost 10 inches long. We don't want that. It's hardly necessary for this particular demo. You can scale him down by typing in a relative scale. So he's almost 47 times his normal size right now. You can type in a set dimension for one, X, Y, and Z. And that'll adjust all the others accordingly because uniform scale is locked. And we're going to do that. We're going to take his longest dimension, which is, his spine, and make it about 4 inches. That would be roughly 88 millimeters. You can see now he's a more appropriate size. And if we wanted to rotate him, not that we do, but if we did want to rotate him, you can just click on any of these lines, and it moves in increments of 15 degrees. Lovely. Or if you want more precise rotation, shift-click, rotate along these lines. It moves in increments of 1. We now can prepare the file using any of these settings, which are determined by our slicer profile, which you load through File, Open Profile, and in this case, they're on my D drive in this folder. I have one for a 0.35 nozzle and a 0.5 nozzle. We're going to do the 0.5 nozzle. So, okay. That changes the layer height, shell thickness, all these settings to a version of the profile provided by Lulzbot, which I found works pretty well. It's slow and steady, but it's good. Here's a simple rundown of the settings in Cura Slicer when preparing a 3D print. Layer height is obviously the layer height. Each particular slice is 0.38. This is millimeters. Shell thickness is the number of outside walls. This is also called perimeters sometimes. Retraction is if it's going to cross or do a travel move, the nozzle will actually move up, I think half a millimeter, maybe, and then move and then go back down. Bottom top thickness, this is basically the bottom top shell. This is a multiple of layer height. Fill density is the infill of a particular part. They're never solid unless you tell it 100%. Print speed, this is obviously the print speed. We set these temperatures to 0. As you'll see later, we do that so we can preheat manually and test for clogs on the Lulzbot. Supports, we went over this. I will go over this in a minute. And this is obviously the filament diameter, and the flow percentage is basically the feed rate. The diameter, you'll see it says 2.85. When you buy the filament, it's 3 millimeters. You actually take an average of a couple measurements of the filament and use that as your measurement. Under the Advanced tab, these are things you really don't need to ever change. Nozzle size. It's the size of the hole in the nozzle. This is retraction setting. Okay, so it's 1.5 millimeters, not 0.5. This initial layer thickness means it actually lays down more material to have better adhesion in the first layer. And these are all travel speeds, which Lulzbot set, which I haven't tinkered with at all. Minimal layer time means how much time a layer has to be in order for the fan to cool it. And there's no plugins, and the start and end G-code, you can tinker with that later if you want, but you need to know some G-code commands. That's it. And finally, these are the expert settings for Cura Slicer. Most of these you don't need to know about. But the ones you might be considering is the support section here. Support structure is obviously the format of it, so lines are a grid. This is the angle of which an overhang has to be before it makes supports. This is the distance between the support and the part, these two settings. And this is the amount of support structure. So like a higher number would be really tight support structure, really low would be looser. And that's the last section. This is really the only number you're going to want to change, which is the fill density, and you're going to want to change the support type. Fill density in this case 7, it's pretty low. You'll have a lot of sort of air in the model, so to speak. You could afford to go up to 10 or 12 or whatever. For a solid part, you'd set it to 100. And you can see when I change anything, it automatically regenerates the toolpath. It hasn't exported it yet, but it automatically regenerates it. And under support type, I can change this to either touching build plate, which means supports will only be started on the glass for overhangs, or everywhere, which means supports will be started anywhere there's an overhang. So in this case, his little underbelly, touching build plate only, would start a support on the glass and put it up to his stomach. Support type everywhere would put it on his feet going up to his underbelly. We don't want that. We don't want to ruin the model, so we're just going to do touching build plate. This will take a second to generate, and then we're going to look at the G-code. This is your view button in the top right. We're only concerned with two views, really, normal and layers. Clicking on layers, zooming out. You can see at the bottom it's loading the toolpath. And over here on the right is a scrubber, which allows you to go up and down and look per layer all the way down to the supports. There it is. It's lovely, isn't it? And whenever we're ready, I like it, looks good. I can click on Save G-code, save it wherever I want, or I'm going to insert an SD card, which you can't see, but it's happening, inserting an SD card. And this little thing will pop up, boom. You can just click that, and it saves it to the SD card, just like that, and you can eject the SD card from the interface. Now, if you wanted to do this with the other Lulzbot profile, File, Open Profile, D.35, you can just open this profile. It'll change all these settings automatically, and you can change your fill density and your support type to whatever you need. The 0.35 settings are for the right machine, which has a 0.35 nozzle, and the 0.5 settings are for the left Lulzbot, which has a 0.5 nozzle. Don't mix these up. You'll ruin your prints, and you could damage the machine. Just try to remember 0.5 is left, 0.35 is right. Here we are for part 2 of the how to use the Lulzbot tutorial. You've already gone over the settings in Cura Slicer, and now you simply have to get the print started. You may or may not recall that we set the temperature for the nozzle and the bed to 0 in Cura, which means that whatever temperature the machine is at when you start the print, that's what it'll print at. We do that so we can preheat it in advance and make sure there's no clogs. To preheat, you're going to use the LCD controller. Go in, go down to Prepare, and you're going to select Preheat PLA. The machine at that point will go up to 180 degrees for the nozzle, Celsius, and 50 degrees for the bed. This is a standard temperature for all PLA types for both Lulzbot machines. This temperature, however, varies from machine to machine, meaning the MakerBots are different temperature, the Maker Gears and the Ultimaker all run at different temperatures. While it's preheating, you can use a glue stick to prepare the bed. This is simply so the first layer has better adhesion. In the past, we were using blue tape or Aquanet hairspray. The glue stick is by far the best. Don't need a lot, just quick once over. And once it's preheated, you can either, through the LCD controller or manually spinning this herringbone gear, feed filament through. I'm spinning the gear just manually. Filament will start coming through, and that'll tell you it's not clogged. At that point, again, using the LCD controller, go down to Print from SD, and simply select whatever part you want to print.
you go.